Net gain, networking, encouragement, and training. Brought to you by Jack of All People Trades, helping snow and landscape companies recruit, train, and retain the best employees. All right, welcome to Net Gain. This is Networking, Encouragement, Training. I'm your host, Evan Tashwire from Jack of All People Trades. Got a very special guest with me today, Thane Isaacs from Innovations Tomorrow. Thane, if you can, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them a little bit about you.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me here today. Hopefully everyone can hear me pretty well. I am Thane Isaacs. I live in Vermont. I have been professionally in the green industry since I was 15 years old. Got more involved in the snow and ice industry when I was 21 in Memphis. Not a lot of snow and ice there, but if you work for FedEx in Memphis, you have to have snow plows. So we had more snow plows than anybody in Memphis, and we had 5. So if that gives you an idea of the work amount of snow that we do in Memphis, and most of our salt that we put out was by push spreaders, by Lesco and Permagreen type push spreaders. So pretty cool stuff. Thanks for having me on here today. Again, I have a passion for working with the people in these industries. They're the salt of the earth. They're some of the hardest working people who get appreciated the least. So I'm their champion. I'm their hero. One of the reasons I got into my coaching business originally was to help these smaller businesses go up against these giants. You know, I had the knowledge. I had not only worked as a Valley Crest branch manager. As a matter of fact, our branch in Memphis was the first Valley Crest branch maintenance branch to make money in its first year. So was definitely a feather in our cap. And then I went on to U.S. Lawns later after I had spent some time in Vermont working for a smaller company. They were about $7 million a year. I worked with them for about 5 years. And then I went to U.S. Lawns and went around the country working with people and realized that's really what I wanted to do with my life, was to be able to help people do that in a way that wasn't held in a container by the corporate world, because I had to fit the U.S. Lawns model. And you and I both know you don't do business in Little Rock, Arkansas, the same way you do it in Waco, Texas, the same way you do it in Sarasota, New York, the same way you do it in Sacramento, California. So you can't, it's not all the same. So you have to be able to help people. And that's why I left U.S. Lawns. And then eventually I went out on my own doing it. I've been doing it since 2015 and made it through COVID and keep going. Still have your ups and downs no matter what you are, especially when you're a solopreneur. But I wouldn't change it. My wife says I'm happier than she's ever seen me, so I must be doing something right. That's the main thing that matters. That's what I truly believe is wealth is not about the money you have in the bank, but it's about the life you live.
Yeah, that's a great, first of all, I appreciate that, hearing about wanting to be the champion for the industry. I think this is, for those watching it later, this is being recorded in early December of 2025, which we had an early start for winter, a lot of early record breaking in different areas. So I know some crews who are either tuning in now or tuning in later might look back and this be a tough stuff. So I think you being a champion of the industry is really something good. And then, like you said, business everywhere is different. And even within those cities, how you attend to different types of customers is differently. You don't attend to the privately owned, or the hospital that needs, open access service the same way you attend to the warehouse. So There's a lot of variability in that. What would you say? So, being that you're working with yourself, in the coaching now, what do you provide as far as, coaching both, services, and then talk a little bit about the retreats that you do as well for leaders and individuals?
Sure. Well, everyone needs a niche when they're a coach. My big niche is to help owners be the satellite over the storm. So many owners are caught in the middle of everything, and they work in the business. They don't work on the business. They're a part of the business. And that's great to a certain point. But as business owners grow, they really need to pull themselves back a lot. There's so much personal attachment. I mean, I've had owners that I've said, look, you've got to get somebody to take these customer complaints. You every time this happens, you boil. You've got to get somebody to take these employee issues, because every time you start to worry about their loyalty, you take it too emotionally. So there's a lot of great things that a visionary, which most owners should be, can do. Day to day is not one of those. So again, getting them into that. So you talked about this is going to be an episode of personal development and growth, and that's part of what that is. Part of it is maturity. Part of it is owners have told me before, it's like, well, I'm not, then what's my role? If I hire these people to do this and this person does this, what's my role? So your role as a visionary is to provide the environment for which these people can have a career doing what they love to do. And this is what you're doing. You are building a community here, not just a business. So that's what I try to help people see. And if you're not continuously growing and developing yourself, you get stuck in that immature thinking of, I've got to be the one that has the final say. I've got to do all this. And really, if you really want to be a great leader, you really need to have people around you that can do those things. You know, as Henry Ford said, why do I need to have all this information when I have this machine on my desk that I can push a button and get someone who knows that particular area better than I do? I'm not an expert in all these areas, but I can touch a button. And that's what we need to be understanding. You've created this business as the owner, as the visionary, and now your role is to allow people to do what they're best at, because you're not best at all those roles. Whether you think you are or not, you're really not. I don't care who you are. And that's part of what I try to help people see. And if you're not mature enough to let some of that go, it's a difficult road.
No, really good. And I like how you talked about, your niche specifically being working with owners. It sounds like specifically working with owners that are kind of either at that crest of needing to work, as you said, on the business, not in the business as much, or maybe they've gone beyond that crest and just haven't made that transition yet. But I like what you said too about really you being a change maker of helping that owner get from I do when I work in the business to I create and I make that environment and I empower others to do. So kind of
Yes.
with that, what have you seen some of the biggest challenges that owners run into and kind of how can they overcome? So if an owner's listening to this and they're saying, yeah, Thane, that sounds great. What kind of challenges are out there and maybe what encouragement can you give them to, overcome?
Well, let me back up for just a second with that, because every owner has their own challenges. I'm not a cookie cutter approach. I don't do a cookie cutter approach, and there's not a cookie cutter answer to that. I know that's not what you're looking for. I know that's not what you're asking
Sure.
by any means. But, there are situations where, say, an owner has taken over from their father, from their parent. That's a different situation than an owner who has built it up from the ground up. Sometimes you have to get an owner who they've taken over from their father to understand that, their father no longer runs this business. It's your business now. Your father's even passed away, but he follows you around on your shoulders everywhere you go, and you're still questioning yourself, what would my dad do? You need to be asking yourself, what would you do now? Again, having that person over your shoulder is great, but not at a point of making you get stuck and making you not be able to make decisions. That I've seen, again, the owners who have built these businesses up from scratch, and some of their challenges that they run into as far as, being able to be able to do these things is they are like, well, I built it up this far. I know everything. I was able to do this, able to do this. You can't tell me what to do. And you work with businesses as well. And one of the hardest setbacks and can even make you lose a client is, they've got to look in the mirror 95% of the time. A business owner has got to look in the mirror. If they are not willing to look in the mirror, we're probably not going to be able to get very far. Being able to tell having to tell someone and having them be able to digest the fact that it's like, hey, these are horrible people, or they're not doing their job right, or whatever it is. It's like, well, did they hire themselves? I don't think so. Did they train themselves? I hope not. So who's doing all that? And if you're not doing it, at least you have hired the people who are doing it. So the onus is on you at the end of the day as the owner. And it really hurts. It really sucks. But the ones that are willing to hear that and bite down on that hook and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take that bait and I'm going to see where this goes. We can go places. But the people who are like, no, it's not. I mean, perfect example. One of the customers I worked with here a long time ago, right around COVID, was a property management company. They were telling me the frontline people were the problem. And I'm like, wow, how long has this problem been going on? It's like 5 years. I said, wait a minute. You told me that most of your frontline people stay less than a year, and the longest you've had is 13 months. So if it's been going on 5 years, it can't really be the frontline people. And I asked the manager, I said, how long have you been here? And he said, 5 years. I said, well, I think we have our answer. We didn't work together, but another month after that. So, because he didn't want to hear that. So that was fine. If we can't be honest with each other, I can't work with you. So I think that's something people have to realize. First thing you start as an owner, as a leader, as whoever you are, that's the top. the first thing you start having to ask yourself is, what is my fault in this situation? What did I not do in this situation? What am I complicit in to make this happen? If you start there and ask yourself there, you're not going to be as reactionary to your people, and you're going to communicate better with your people. Even admitting, say, hey, look, I know I might not have communicated this very well. How could I have done a better job? If you start out like that, as opposed to going, how the hell did this happen? So again, I think owners have to be able to communicate well, to be effective. I think that has to be their role, is to have that vulnerability and to be able to start with self.
That's a lot of good nuggets. I mean, I feel like that could be. I mean, we could probably be here for 4 hours following each one of those trails down, like really where they go. But a lot of good that I heard there was number one, kind of the differentiator between, and I know even these aren't cookie cutter, like you said, but kind of the inherited second generation, from the father, the parents versus, owner who built it from the ground themselves and kind of, unique challenges they have. And I think what you said about, those who inherit it from their father, and it's like, well, what would my dad do? I think that can even apply when people get promoted or in line in like succession. What would the prior manager do? Well, my boss used to have this job. What would they do? And it's good to learn and take good things, but the challenges of today are different from the challenges of yesterday. So like you said, what would you do? You were put in that role for a reason. So to that second generation owner, I would encourage a third, however many generations, I would encourage you to say, you were put in that role for a reason. So, use your strengths. And then I think kind of to the, I don't want to say know it all, but like you said, the owner who's built it up from the ground, I really like that self-reflection and walk through, especially the humility to say, hey, I looked at it. I think this is what I could have done better. But from your side, asking your employees, what could I do to improve? How could I communicate? Because that's really trust building too. So I think those are really good things that you shared there.
And I think, again, if you as an owner or a leader or whoever the direct report, everybody's reporting to, if you can't admit mistakes, admit flaws, nobody else is going to be able to either.
Mm.
And it's never the problem, the mistake that causes the issue. It's not owning up to it. I mean, there's nothing worse than everybody knows Thane messed up, but Thane's going around trying to put it off on Evan all day long. But everybody knows Thane did it. And if Thane had just said, hey, I'm sorry, next time I'll try to XYZ or ZYX, everybody can move on. But if you can't do that, people can't move on.
Yeah, I really like that about accountability and psychological safety. And I know sometimes things of quote unquote soft skills can kind of, in a rough and tumble industry seem like, that's soft. But so I saw recently somebody said soft skills was one of the worst brandings that was ever done, because they said there's nothing soft about, after a major catastrophe, taking ownership and saying, hey guys, that failed because of me, and having those eyes on you to, look at you, or, hey, I got to go clean that up because I'm the one that made that mistake. Or even the tough conversations with employees of like, hey, you know what? I got to hold you accountable for that, because that was something that doesn't fit our culture, and we don't speak to people like that. And there's nothing soft about any of those. So just to kind of, we talked a little bit about why self-development's important. What would you say to the, busy business owner that pushes back on you and maybe says like, look, I got too much going on. I got too many fires. I ain't got the time for that. That's fluff. I ain't got the time for it. What would you say to that?
Well, the first thing I would tell them is, if you're telling yourself you've got too many fires to put out, you're going to have fires for the rest of your damn life to put out. If you're telling yourself you have the fires, you're going to keep having fires. Maybe the reason you keep having fires to put out is because you're not taking time enough to study and learn why you're having so many fires, and actually say, hey, you know what? Sometimes they have what they call controlled burns. And they actually have to let some of those houses burn down so they keep the next ones from burning. But the biggest part of it to me is, if you're not taking time to invest and develop into yourself, 3 years go by and you've just been going through the motions, okay? Just going through the motions while you're, the other people in business doing the same thing around you have been investing in their people, developing their people, because businesses don't grow. The people inside the businesses grow, and they develop the business, okay? Businesses are not an organic thing. People are. So we're investing in these people so they grow and they gain new knowledge. They gain new skills. Guess who's going to have the cutting edge as things come along? I mean, if you're not taking time to invest in yourself, what is 3 years going to look like from now? It's like, well, well, I can't, I don't have time to invest in myself. It's like, you don't have time not to invest in yourself because the people who are going to be left holding the bag are the people who haven't been developing themselves and learning, not the people who have been developing and investing in themselves. The more you develop and invest in yourself today, the more you're going to be prepared for things tomorrow. It's just
Love
that's
that.
just the way it is. That's why leadership, a big part of leadership is personal growth because I have to keep investing in myself or I don't have anything new to teach people. And that's what I do is I help people, I teach people, I train people. And if I didn't have 7 books around me right now that I'm digging into on a regular basis, I wouldn't have that information to be able to share with people. So again, I can't imagine a bigger investment in yourself than actually self-development. And as Jim Rohn said, formal education will earn you a living. Continued self-development will earn you a fortune.
I love that. I love that quote. And I really like what you said about a business doesn't grow, the people in the business grow. And that example, too, of going through the motions, is like while the rest of your competitors are getting better. I use a lot of sport metaphor. I was actually just on with Levi Jet last week. We talked a lot about that, but it's kind of like you said, if you're just going through the motions and just showing up and this other team behind the scenes is putting in the work to get better, they're going to be passing you. And when you get to that competition, the competition won't lie, because
Right.
you're doing the innovative things to get ahead. Whereas who is going through the motions is going to kind of lag behind. So I think that's really good. And then as far as developing yourself, kind of shifting a little bit from, I know you focus a lot on the owners, but kind of what advice would you give to someone in developing themselves to move to whatever that next step in their career is, whether it's the owner who's built the business to now having to be that CEO focusing more on direct reports, or the individual contributor going to the manager? What would you say to that person ready to take that next step?
I think whatever step you're getting ready to take, I call it making yourself an intentional growth plan. Okay, it's a plan that intentionally gets you growing. It's not read a dozen books. Okay, it's like what are the areas you're wanting to go into. So over the next 6 months, read 12 books regarding XYZ, whatever that is. Then find people who do what you love to do. Hang around with them. Watch videos of them, whatever it is, emulate them. I don't want anybody to ever mimic anybody and be like them, but you can emulate people and say, okay, well, I like the way, Evan wears, electrifying shirts. I don't want to wear the exact same shirts Evan does, but I definitely don't want to wear pale shirts like the other Evans wearing. He's just wearing like lifeless shirts, You've got on electric shirt and other Evans just got on like, just like a green shirt. So, but again, you've got to find those things in people that's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like the way that guy does that. I'm not going to copy that, but I want to kind of feel how to get that vibe. So I think that's very important. And then start actually putting in plans of what you need to do. Are there credentials you need to get in order to do what you want to do? If you're employed, ask your employer to say, hey, look, I'd like to take these classes. If I take these classes and I get passing grades, will you reimburse me or at least carry some of the weight of that? And most employers will. They will do like you got to stay for 6 months or a year afterwards, or you got to pay some of it back. But you've got to put yourself out there and be willing to do it and be willing to try it. Two of my big pet peeves are this whole thing about fake it till you make it, and what's the other one along that line? I can't remember, but it's like we all fake it till we make it. We all have imposter syndrome. That's the other one, is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Look, when I walked in to be a branch manager the first day, I had never been a branch manager before. And you're telling me I wasn't faking it till I made it? You're telling me I wasn't faking? There was nobody coming to train me. Not one single person came in to train me. It was, there you go, there's the job. That was it. That was at True Game. And then when I left there, when I went to Valley Crest, I didn't have anybody come and train me on their systems and processes. It was just, here you go. There you go. I was faking it till I made it the whole way. So many people, it's like, oh, you can't fake it till you make it. It's like, well, tell me somebody who's walked into a new role and knows exactly what they're doing. So I just try to beat that down because I think too many people beat themselves up about, well, I'm not ready for this yet. It's like, of course you aren't. You know what? And once you do get ready for this, you're going to be ready for something. You're going to try something else because this is going to get you bored after a little while. And you're not going to be able to master any role till you've done it for 2 years. So again, all these things that we beat ourselves up about taking on a new role. I can tell you right now, when I started my business, okay, what I'm doing right now, that I've been doing since May of 2015. I launched it one night, and that night somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want you to come do this for my business." I wasn't ready. I hadn't gotten anything ready. I had a website. That's it. And I knew that guy. If I'd said no to that guy, he would have said, "All right, good luck." As it was, I billed out over $500,000 to them over the next 4.5 years. And I wasn't ready, but I did it. I went and did it. And, I'm still going today. Made it through COVID. Ups and downs yet, but if I hadn't have started, you can't ever take step two till you take step one, and you won't know how good you're stepping till you start stepping. So I just say, go for it. Don't let anything stop you. You're your own worst enemy, and fear and doubt has killed more dreams than lack of knowledge or lack of skill ever will. So that's my biggest thing, is just go for what you want.
No, great encouragement. And I think the key takeaway there is really growth plan and shadowing for wherever you want to be next. So I'd say to those owners who need to become more the CEO types or having certain challenges, have your growth plan on that with reading certain books, maybe reaching out to a coach like Thane, or also networking with other owners who are facing those challenges. You want to grow your sales, network with other owners who have grown their sales. If you need to scale or make your operations more efficient, network with owners who have built it up and have had to scale or add different branches on. So I think those are both really good. And then also good encouragement about, like, you're never ready, and not in you're never ready in a bad way, but like,
Right.
don't need to feel 100% ready. So I think those are all really good encouragements. Last thing I wanted to close with here on the recording part, Thane, if you want to talk a little bit about, I know with your business, you do some retreats that you offer. If you want to kind of talk about those, kind of who those are for, how people can get connected with you, definitely take the floor for that.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into that, if anybody needs it, I do have a goal setting program. If anybody wants to reach out to me, there's no obligation. I will send it to you. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you need help, I can walk you through it. But it's just a little package to be able to help you set your goals. And the great thing is, once you know how to set one goal, you can set any goal. It's not, oh, well, setting a goal for dating this girl is different than setting a goal for making my first million. It's not. It's just different pieces that go in there, but the formula is the same. So, yes, we do these retreats. I do them at Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. We've been doing them for a while. I've done a few here, but the beach house just seems to be this magical place. Not my words, everybody else's words that comes. Really, really happy that I get to do these here. I'm actually doing a session April 1st through 4th, 6th through 9th, and 9th through 12th. 1st through 4th is only one spot left. It's almost sold out, and I just announced it on Monday of this week, so that's pretty cool. I've been doing this will be my 5th anniversary doing these. I did these before COVID. It was kind of more like business, and I became a John Maxwell certified coach back in 2018. And I just decided that no matter the systems, processes, no matter what kind of trucks, equipment, clothes everybody wore, if the people in those clothes, if the people driving those trucks, if the people operating that equipment weren't of good character, weren't of sound values that matched mine, things weren't going to happen. So that's what I started really working on. And that's what we really got into at the retreats. It really became more about who you are as a person. And what I tell people is, what you walk away most with from the retreats is what you came with the biggest hole of inside of you when you came. We have an agenda, I do. But the reason I don't really have an agenda is because whatever needs to happen there happens there. It's really not me. It's really just the energy that's been there from all these retreats we've done, all these things that have happened there. The last one we did was probably one of the best weeks of my life. Several people walked away completely transformed as far as seeing themselves completely different. One person who had gotten lost in the mire of the commercial landscape world and saw himself as the true legend he was. I got him to see that. A couple of other people who got some pain off them. Again, it's a great experience. It's hard to explain, but I can tell you this: it's only for the brave. If you're not brave, you shouldn't come, because you have to be vulnerable. You have to be open, and you have to be willing to put yourself out there. But again, of all the retreats we've done there, I've had one person who didn't walk away just, completely just thinking that, man, that was incredible. I can't wait to come back. I've had a lot of people return on the retreat. So If anybody's interested in coming, I would love to talk to you about it. But what I really like to do is let them talk to people who've been. So, because if it's me, it just sounds like I'm trying to get you to come to fill a spot. But if you talk to somebody who has no ulterior motive about it, they're telling you it's pretty incredible. And we've had people who have $100 million businesses there, and people who've had $150,000 businesses there. So it doesn't matter about the size of your business. It matters about the size of your aspirations and dreams and what you want to become.
Love that. And I think that's just a great encouragement to close on. So, anybody who is listening to this, whether it's on podcast, YouTube, definitely if you're looking at coaching, you're looking at, that personal development, really to dive deep and do the work. And like Thane said, if you're ready to be vulnerable and do that and transform your life as a business owner, business pro at any level, definitely reach out and connect with him. So I'm going to close it up here on the recording piece, but then we are going to jump to networking for those live on the call. But this has been Net Gain, Networking, Encouragement, and Training with Evan Tashwire, Jack of all people trades, Thane Isaacs. So Jack of all people trades, we exist to help businesses find, recruit, hire, and train, and ultimately keep the best people. So if that's something your business is looking for and needs that talent pro specialist, definitely hit me up and, keep tuning into Net Gain.
With the weather, but you ain't gon' slip and fall with that. Why? Cause we snow fighters, we assaulting that. Get it, salting that. King need the salt and rap. Clown